Okay, so um, there's a method that came to me um, because I was concerned, as most people are, I'm sure, about their drinking water coming out of the faucets, and I'm sure a lot of us know that there's not the greatest stuff coming out of the faucets, depending on where you are in the world or where you are in the country. Some is better than others, but it is still somewhat either in the United States chemically, there's chemicals that are added, and in some of the other parts of the world, it's not the cleanest. So I was concerned that I was where I was I didn't have much of a choice, but to drink the only water that I had the opportunity to drink was from the same faucet that you wash your hands in after you use the bathroom. I was concerned about this, so there was a method that came to me, and I can't take full responsibility for it at all whatsoever. Part of it was from some of the reading I had done in the initiation book. Part of it is what was intuitively guided for me to do, and the method uh, is something similar to this. So I would make a connection with the water, and I would do that by closing my eyes and thinking about what water is. And water, and I have some water here actually. Water is H2O, right? Water is H2O. So what is that? Water and H2O, hydrogen and oxygen are gases. So water's a gas. Okay, so that's what it is. And then I would think, well, what does water feel like? And in my mind, I've lived next to the beach for a good portion of my life. I would imagine what the waves felt like, or what it was like to sit on the top or float on the top of the water, or feel the water through my fingertips, or watch it and feel it go in my feet to my toes. And I would get that feeling, and I would describe it with adjectives. It's warm, it's cold, it's silky, it's wet. And then I would take it a step deeper, which is becoming knowing that we're all one, and knowing that on a deeper level I am the water. And so I would say thank you to it. I would connect with it in this way and say thank you to it. And I would say, I invite divine consciousness to transmute all negative energy into positive energy within this water so this water could hydrate my body, cleanse my body, and purify my body. Thank you for this water. Let this water balance my body. And then I would say, to me, water is an immovable force. And I would feel myself moving through rocks. I would say, water washes away the sins of the world. And I would see rain coming over me and washing away all mud. I would say water washes away the old and brings in the new. And I would watch the waves come in and just wash away stuff and bring it out. Wash away stuff and bring it out. And then I would say water is the building blocks of life. And I would see and feel myself with the water being absorbed by the roots of plants and giving them life. I would feel it. I would feel the plant, how it felt after doing this. And then I would say water is balance. I would feel myself being balanced because water always finds a way. And that's what I would feel. Water always finds a way. And in doing this, I was giving thanks to the water. It also came to me that synchronistically, we are in Aquarius right now, meaning we're entering a new age. And what does water do? It washes away the sins of the world. And that's us heading into this new phase, this new part of our existence. And what has to happen? Water is going to wash away the sins of the world. Water is the building blocks of life, our new lives. And this came to me when I was praying with the water, giving thanks for the water, that all these new concepts, they're not so new, they're old, but they were forgotten, are being delivered to us from the ethereal waters of the universe right now. And by the energies that we're in. It's washing away the old, it's bringing the new, it's giving us life, it's washing away the sins of the world. And I just thought that was so beautiful, and I wanted to share that with you. And I also do it with food as well. So I was limited on the type of foods that I could eat. So I went in as a vegan, but I was I'd say an Ostro ovo vegan specifically. So I still had eggs and I still had bivalves. Uh, but in the place I was at, I didn't have the opportunity to be uh, vegan or even that type of vegetarian or what have you. So I felt really horrible about having at first felt guilty about having being able to or not having the opportunity to eat the way that was eating and to have to harm things to give myself sustenance. So um, I would pray over the food and I would pray and say, I invite divine consciousness to transmute all negative energy into positive energy within this food. So this food could provide nourishment to my body by restoring all my bodily systems to homeostasis. Thank you for this food, and thank you for the animal giving their life so that I can receive sustenance, so that we could receive sustenance. And then I would say thank you for the fishermen, because 85 to 90% of the foods I ate was fish, canned fish. So thank you for the fishermen, and thank you for the facility for providing me with the food. And I would thank my family, and same thing. I would say let this food balance my body. Thank you to God, thank you to Mother Earth, and thank you to God. And that would be how I prayed over the food. Um, and I looked at it like I was energizing the food, and a lot of times I would, excuse me, a lot of times I would envision the food being in the water, being uh, engulfed in light. But sometimes I would take it a step further, and with the water, I would put the water in the sun, let the sun, the UV hit it. And sometimes I had earphones like this. I would put on meditation music or, uh, 432 hertz and put the headphones on my water. So it was almost like it was catching the vibes, the sun. And so with with the food and the water, when I would when I would be done praying, I would always say amen, but it wouldn't be an amen, it would be an amen. So they could feel my vibration, the vibration, which I know some people that are familiar with the Yogananda teachings might be familiar with being the same as amen. So what I would do is after I said what I said and I gave thanks, I would look at my water and I would say amen. Excuse me. So same thing with the food. Um, Another thing that I wanted to go over with you guys was uh, there were times that I would, during meditation, ask myself and ask God through me what my purpose was exactly. And it would be revealed to me that it wasn't for me to know my exact purpose at this time, but it was for me to trust, have faith, and relax into the flow of life. And that's what I would do. I would say I surrender to the flow of life. And I would thank God for gently guiding me and intuitively guiding me on my path for of living my divine purpose. So I would say, thank you, God, for continuously guiding me in fulfilling my divine purpose. Then I would set an affirmation, I am fulfilling my divine purpose. And the intuitive guidance I got it would be brought forth to me. It would be brought forth to me when the time was right, and it would be unfold in front of me, and all I would have to do was let go and just let life happen and me just be in the flow of life and let God come through me. And that was beautiful. Also, this is what came to me that I wrote down in my book, just so you guys know. This is the Christ letter, Christ Returns, Christ letters. Um, and I would write in the back, as you guys can see. Um, and so what came to me was this when I would meditate on what my mission was. And this is what came. My divine purpose is to embody peace, love, joy, wisdom, unity, and harmony. By doing this, I'll be keeping my vibration high and be assisting with the liberation of Mother Earth and humanity. In doing this, raising group and mass consciousness and being the formulation of a social memory complex. In doing this, will be assisting with the transition of Mother Earth and her inhabitants, the fourth density positive in the most gentle way possible. And that's what came to me. Also, what came to me was this, and I said, well, how do I, that's great, and I love that, but how do I assist Mother Earth and her inhabitants, and how do I formulate the social memory complex? How do we do that? It's okay to talk about it, and that's cool that we're all on board with it, but what does that mean exactly? And so I meditated on that, and so I said, I'm ready and willing to lift all my experiences, everything that I've been through, all my lessons to the grid, and the way I call it the Christ consciousness grid surrounding Mother Earth to assist in the formulation of the social memory complex. So that's what it came to me was, well, so if I want to be a social memory complex, that means I make all my thoughts, experiences, and past lessons so that my lessons and my mistakes are now everyone else's lessons and their mistakes, and so they can learn from them. But I have to make those available. And in order for me to make those available, what I did was I affirmed it. I put it out there. I said, I willingly lift all my past experiences, my lessons, my current experiences to this Christ consciousness grid so they can be available to all others. So they don't have to go through some of the things I went through, or if they don't want to experience those things. If they do, that's fine. But if not, it's available to them now. So they can learn from these lessons. And that's what came to me. I said, I make all my thoughts, emotions, and feelings transparent. And that was another one that I said, I asked myself, am I really ready for that? Am I ready to make all my thoughts, emotions, feelings transparent and lift them to the grid to assist in formulating our social memory complex? I say, yeah, I'm ready for that. So I said, well, how do I do that then? And I'm having this meditation. I remember I came back and I wrote all this stuff down and I said, well, I lift through my crown eye chakra, through my crown, through my third eye, through my crown chakra. Um, and I see this cord coming from out through my crown chakra or through my third eye, out through my crown chakra. And I see this cord connecting to the grid, the Christ consciousness grid surrounding Mother Earth. And I see these emotions and these past feelings and these experiences just going up through the cord and connecting with it, with the grid, to be available to all others when they join the grid or for them to access. And that's pretty much how that meditation went. I wanted to share that with you guys. I don't know if any of you guys have had experiences like that, or if that's anything you guys have put much thought into. But to me, that was powerful, because I knew I was ready at that point to do my part and being part of the social memory complex, not just saying it, but to do it. So I'm gonna take a second after that one, if you guys don't mind.
Thank you so much for sharing that and enlightening us with that information, Joey. Um, I had a few thoughts that came up while you were talking. I could
Mm,
share. I took some notes. Jumping
mm,
back to the first thing you talked about with food and water and giving thanks and blessing it and so on. Immediately, I know you know this, and immediately reminded me of Dr. Emoto's research with the Hado
yes.
from Japan. He studied the effect of prayer, words, sounds, images on water and food and plants, and scientifically documented it. And famously, it's the ice crystal photography, where he would have a jar of water, let's say, one experiment, and on one of it, it would maybe he'd put a piece of paper that said, thank you, and the other one said like fuck you. And then he would freeze them and would take photos with a microscope of the crystal as it was forming in this sub-zero environment. And the one with the negative energy would be a chaotic, disorganized, random crystalline structure, whereas the one with the positive energy was a beautiful, symmetrical, ideal looking snowflake uh, structure. And different words and different things made different shapes. For example, some were blessed by monks or so on, would have that positive thing. Some were taking from like pristine water sources, like some lakes or springs, and compared to some polluted water sources, and would have the same observable effect. And then similarly, I recall seeing the experiment done with like a container of white rice, where the same thing, you put a good word and a bad word on two separate samples, or bless one and curse one. And the one that was blessed would stay normal, and the one that was cursed would go rotten. You would see that in the same time period, one would be rotting and the other one wouldn't. So the it's kind of like a scientifically documented confirmation of the thoughts and your practices that you came up with that you were doing, um, you know, in the real world, which I think is very important. And um, just like in Christianity, saying grace and everything, and Judaism, you say the bracha, or you say the prayer over the things you're about before you eat it or drink it. It's certainly part of that wisdom and knowledge from way back when that comes through our books and teachings, and even today through channeling and so on. Speaking of that, on the same topic of well, the next topic actually you mentioned, right? uh, talk transition that into the food that you had available to you, and how you came in as a vegan, that with your intention of not killing and eating cows and chickens and pigs and all that for food. It's interesting because here, uh I kind of have a different spin on it. Not saying there's anything wrong or any disagreement with your thought process or what you were doing. I'm similarly a vegetarian for like 11 years. Um, but I was reading this yesterday and I saw you guys, I shared, because it's the same quote channeling about the dolphins and the whales I shared, because that stuff came up. They were asking about tuna fish, that they know dolphins get caught in the nets, and sometimes there's dolphin meat in the cans of tuna. They were asking Quo about this. Someone was concerned. And what they were saying, if it's okay, I'll just read it quickly. So you hear it straight from the source, but it's pretty interesting. They're asking about, the karma and so on for eating the food. Um, yeah. So the first part, there are very few human entities upon your planet at this time that have any awareness at all of the nature of the, whales and dolphins. Consequently, since their awareness, they're uh they're only destroying fish. The, their karma is that of one who destroys fish. One who is ignorant cannot be held as being guilty of that which he was in complete ignorance. So if you think you're just eating a fish, but really it's a whale, uh, it in the grand scheme of things, in reality, you're not getting more karma because technically you're eating a whale because you only think you're eating a fish. Because you can't, like they said, can't be held accountable for that which you're in ignorance. And then they say here, on the other hand, it is well to point out that there is what you may call a kind of karma involved in eating anything whatsoever: berries, nuts, vegetables, grasses, and dairy products. All of these things have a consciousness of a kind. It is not only the flesh of fish and animals that cannot be consumed without there being a responsive effect or karmic effect. All things that move into feeding you as a human have given their consciousness to you, and consequently, it is a spiritually positive practice to remember always to give thanks for every morsel of nutrition that is ingested. So, even, for vegans and vegetarians or carnivores, it doesn't matter what you're eating, according to Quo. Everything is consciousness, right? We have the one infinite creator, pre illusion, then we have consciousness. So literally everything is consciousness. Sure, there's higher forms of consciousness, there's seniority of vibration of consciousness, but even the sand on the beach and the mountains are technically consciousness. Now we don't eat those, they don't give us nutrition. But so that that is a fact they talk about. They say it's an let's see here. Yeah. It is certainly an excellent idea to spiritualize the process of eating, giving it respect and honor, and giving to those nuts, berries, vegetables, dairy products, and meats that are eaten thanks and praise for their gift of their consciousness. So what, like just before this call, I had my lunch, berries and fruit and granola and dairy, cottage cheese and whatever. And like you were doing, especially getting inspired from what you shared, Joey, giving thanks to each individual form of consciousness. And for me, I'll include like, thank you for your sacrifice, for your service, for giving yourself of service to others, for me to eat and consume and uh, fuel me to continue on my path of service to others. That I am grateful for your service to me, such that I may be of service to others as well, for you, sustaining me, basically. And there was one last bit. Maybe not. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that perspective that, Quo shares that I have to agree with kind of logically, right? Um, and then moving on to that third topic you brought up about the Christ consciousness grid, and you were, trying to help and aid a social memory complex, so to speak, I think you were saying. And in terms of releasing your experiences and sharing your experiences that you went through, that you learned, your trials and tribulations and emotions and feelings into this consciousness grid to help others somehow in the social memory complex area, reminded me of Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenetic field, where in my mind, it's I haven't read it in depth. From what I gather, I see it as just this collective memory field that surrounds the people, the communities, the planet, where kind of like if you think of something, it probably somewhere else, someone else also had that thought or like posted that, tweet or something like that. So by you releasing your experiences into this like database, this etheric database around the planet, your others are able to tap into that in their dreams and their meditation subconsciously. you know if they are open their mind and their subconscious is trying to pass some information to their conscious in a similar experience that you had, you may provide that insight that their subconscious is able to retrieve your information you dumped on the database, that they could then download it for their consciousness. So that just, you know, parallel came to mind that I wanted to just share with the viewers here and you all. Thank you. You're still muted, both of you.
I said, I agree with you. That came to my mind too, Josh, the morphogenic field. And one thing that I left out, which came to me while you were talking, was um, not only did I see this cord that was connected and see these experiences get lifted through to the grid, but then what I saw after that was from my heart chakra, a green cord being attached to everyone on Earth, and me being able to express my emotions through this cord, without me having to speak them, but just so they could feel them in their heart center. Uh, that's that's what I forgot to say. Uh, so I just wanted to add that little part in at the end. Um, Another thing that I just wanted to touch on is I had these affirmations that came to me that said, I align my will with the divine will of the creation creator. I'm in service to my other selves in their highest good and best interests. Excuse me. I nourish, nurture, teach, protect, maintain, and fulfill the needs of others as well as myself. And I lovingly establish order out of chaotic mindful actions. Um, and then after that, I wrote just I am. My affirmation was I am, and then I would write different things down that came to me in the meditation as I would ask myself, who am I? And these words would come to me, these adjectives would come to me, and things like, I am genuine, I am conscientious, I'm humble, I'm honest, and I would different words would come to me at different times, and then what would happen is I would take those words. Let's use humble, for example. Excuse me, and I would see this foundation of a big mountain in my head, and I would be able to carve into the mountain with like this laser type of carving in my head. In my this vision, I would carve in humble, and what was the most fascinating thing was the words that meant like I'm powerful. That would they would car the way that it would work is those would be very bold, and the font would be bigger, and it would be capital, like powerful. And then I would put like I am finesse. Finesse would be like a nice script, and I would say in my head and watch them be placed into the foundation or the bedrock of my personality, placed into be engraved into the foundation of my character. I would do this and continuously. If sometimes nothing, no words would come, and sometimes I would get a whole bunch of words, and I would just write them down. Um, So that's another thing I wanted to share with you guys. Um, so I do have to go in like 15 minutes. I don't know if you guys want to make any comments really quickly, or if you guys want to talk for a little bit.
Just want to open it up and hear, ask Suen if you have anything you want to share.
Yeah, I just wanna, I guess, comment. I really appreciate what you said about you know, giving your experience to the. I don't know how you said it, but to me, it's I think Ra mentioned something about like if we consciously uh, give our experience to the kind of to our higher self or something, it basically help elevate everybody. Um, yeah. Anyhow, that just resonated with me. So like now, I see other people's problems. I used to feel like the urge to like help them by like telling them what to do type of thing. But now, I will see someone and say, oh, I can see like their problem is this and they need to realize that. But I realize, because we're all one, just because, but once I see the solution or I think what the solution is, I can give that in some ways to the collective consciousness and like higher powers to have that reach them. And yeah, so I feel, each of us, when we learn something, we are contribute to the entire consciousness. So make this learning available to more people. Because some ask Ra many questions, and Ra will say, we can we can only teach learn. We cannot learn it for you. But I feel, but we can learn for each other because we are all in this third, incarnation together. Ra, when he's level above, he cannot learn for us. But if one of us learn, this learning can be shared to everybody, and it can somehow propagate. Maybe not doesn't have to be like face to face. I teach you this, but I feel like Joey, you said, you're consciously saying to give my learning and experience to the collective consciousness. I think that's great. That's very important. So that's my comment. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I'm curious. I want to just get clarification. You feel here in third density, the us and other people can learn for each other? Because I had thought it would, you still can only teach someone. Like if I read a book and I learn calculus from reading a calculus textbook, I don't know how I can have Joey automatically learn calculus just because I learned it. Wouldn't I have to teach
No,
him calculus?
no. I don't mean by that. Of course, you can. What I mean is you can teach what you learn. So, for example, if none of us knows calculus, Ra cannot teach us calculus. He can teach us some principles of, maybe you should study this. We need to figure out what calculus is. But once one of us learn calculus, we can start teaching everybody calculus. There's no, because there's no barriers for us teaching others what we learn. So because what we learn is, in some ways, is belong to everybody else. Yeah. So I feel once one of us learns something, then also it allows then the higher power can start commenting, helping us along more. Because Ra also said sometimes when Tong asks questions, he said, "You're not really asking questions. It's something you already know. You're just asking for confirmation." And it seems Ra can confirm that, to say yes or no, this is correct or not correct. But if they haven't figured it out, yeah, let's say calculus, you can ask Ra, is this solution correct? They say, yes, it's correct, or no, it's not correct. But they cannot teach you how to solve it. You have to learn how to solve it. So that's what
I
I
see.
mean.
I see. It's more so, Ra's more subject to not infringing on free will and not giving us novel information that
Right,
we have
right.
no context, no relation.
So I have a
Yes.
feeling some information Ra gives, even though like none of us quite understand what he's talking about, it means some people on the third density read it can understand it. Because if it's none of us know, he will not comment on it. Go ahead, Joe.
So the way that I understand it is that when one of us learns something, similar to like the 100th monkey experiment, it becomes accessible to all of us to learn. And when enough of us learn it,
Yeah.
when the idea reaches critical mass or the learned behavior reaches critical mass, it becomes available to the whole species. And I don't know if it necessarily, and like I said, I'm not an expert on this, but the way I understand it is, it would not that it becomes common knowledge, but it's like you were saying earlier, to use your analogy, it gets put in the database to be accessible for the seeker,
Yeah.
for the seeker to use his will to then have it be available to them.
Yeah, like they can't invent things, but they could share things that are already invented.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
essentially, on a deeper level, since we are all one, that's how this whole mechanism works. Because just because I'm learning it, this is just the personality of me learning it. But since we are all one, once it's my higher self, right, is then connected to your higher self, so it's accessible now to you in that way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we all are helping each other learn in that way. It's not that you'll automatically learn it, it's that now it's more accessible to you. The idea is in a database that wasn't there before. So in other words, it really
Yeah.
expedites the learning process.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're expanding the potential conscious awareness of all that you're aware, you're consciously aware of this topic that you've learned on your own, then there's a potential for others, you know, to also learn what
Yeah.
you've learned.
Yes, and the more people that learn it, and let me just retract a little bit. It's not on my own. It's these are all concepts that come directly from God. So I'm just tapping into something we already all know. I've just meant through will and through the grace of God, I've been able to understand this concept or the concept to be brought forth to me. And these concepts are all concepts that we all know. But I have now brought it down into our plane, filtered it down to our plane, now it becomes more accessible to others, and it raises um, the potential, right, for others to have the similar thoughts or similar concepts be brought to them. And the more of us that actually have the concepts and understand the concepts, the more available it becomes. So it grows exponentially too. And
Yeah, it's like let's say again you have Albert Einstein or someone who invented calculus, or Sir Isaac Newton, right? He invented it, he researched it, he molded over in his brain, he had the eureka, he figured it out. But it was only him. But once he shared it with a couple people, and then some people started a class and they became a teacher and they started teaching it in a college or a high school, then more and more people, became aware and learned it. It started with that one guy who first got it with the help of God and everything. But then he shared it and people continued to share it. And then, just was the ball started rolling down the hill and was gaining momentum and sharing that new learned teaching with all the other cells.
Yeah.
That's one way, and another way, and another example of that would be, let's say, let's use your Albert Einstein example, was living in, I don't know, let's say in the United States, but once he learned this, let's say, well, I don't know what you were talking was physics or what have you, whatever it was, a physics equation, there is a higher probability and potential now for someone in a totally different landmass without ever having to be taught, have the idea of this the equation or physics in a totally different place because the idea has already been filtered down into humanity's, let's say, morphogenic field.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. Yep.
I agree with it too. So I'm more looking at it from like a higher point of view. So from Ross's point of view, let's say only Newton figured out the calculus. So from Ross's point of view, that the entire human race now is
Correct.
capable of doing calculus. Even
Should
though none of us haven't learned, but we already like raise one level above. It's just like who was it? Was it Galileo? Think like sun, Earth revolving the sun. Even nobody believes him, or he has to be punished for it. But from a higher perspective, that the human race has already, gone a level above that they recognize that Earth is not the center anymore. So it doesn't matter if everybody accepts it or not. It's like
he's
one candle is lit, right? It just takes time to lit everybody else.
yeah, he's planting the seed of consciousness, of that consciousness, right? And he's planting the seed of consciousness,
Mm.
and it's up to us. Then the seed is there, and it's up to us then to water it. So when we're ready, we water it through with our will, and then the seed grows. And I think that's, we're all pretty much in agreement with that.
Yeah, and that seed metaphor popped in my mind at the
Really? Yeah,
same time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So so yeah, that's pretty much how I understand the social memory complex to work. And then the other part of it was the emotions part, which is just being able to feel one another and being able, and that brings, I'm glad we just were talking about this because that brings me back to what we were talking about earlier with the food and the water and having a connection to it. And I know Josh and I, we did speak about this briefly, is from what I understand, that's how telepathy works. So if I was going to, and being that we are all one, there should be no reason why we can't communicate to one another. And there should be no reason why once Josh gets an idea, I wouldn't be able to get the idea because it's in the field now. And since we're all one, it's accessible to all of us. Um, the same thing with telepathy. I mean, so if I was going to formulate a telepathic connection with Josh, what I would do is the same method that I used for the water. I would say, what is Josh? Josh is a human being. What's a human being? And I would go down through the progressions. And then I would try to imagine what it was like well, what does Josh, feel like? And what is Josh, what would it be like? Well, to have the understanding of knowing that really on a deeper level, I am part of Josh. Josh is part of me. And we meet somewhere in the middle when he doesn't, he's doing it at the same time I'm doing it, but in, conversely.
I
And mhm,
Yeah, man, that sounds spot on to me from what I've learned recently that or another concept I've always thought of in regards to telepathy, how it's more, it's like putting yourself in their shoes, thinking the way they
mhm,
think. So, and I remember reading this somewhere, probably from Quo. telepathy isn't like literally like email or instant messenger, but it's more like you're thinking on the same wavelength. You're both listening to the same radio station at the same time, so you
Mm-hmm.
both know like what's next. You're in sync, like you tuned up. So by
Mm-hmm.
you, that's like you tuning to me. And that
Correct.
we were both consciously trying to do it, I would be tuning to you. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
meet in the middle where we would then, be able to have that more concept telepathic communication. Actually, I was just reading the same thing with dolphins. Dolphins use concept communication with their sound waves. They communicate with these funny sounds that we don't, and they transmit through the water, and they're able to unpack them and unravel them as a
Yeah.
concept instead of individual
Yeah.
words. But they said that that's not telepathy, but it's like close to telepathy. But I'd have to read
Yeah.
more about that.
It's funny you said that because in my meditation this morning, I heard it. Sounds in the meditation. For some reason, dolphins came to mind, and I think it's because in the reading yesterday we were talking about somebody had brought up dolphins and whales, and it's funny we brought up whales and dolphins again today. And yeah, from what I understand it, it's really the sound, the vibration is an encoded communication, encoded message, right? That the sound actually itself, the sound itself is the message encoded, and it's just their mechanism, a way of unpacking it, like you said, or decoding it, is just becomes it's innate in them. It's just that that sound to them is the message that whatever's trying to be portrayed,
And I feel in
communicated.
our modern society and culture, we're moving more and more toward that, right? With the technology of emojis,
Yeah,
memes, GIF,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? A
yeah.
concept.
Like hieroglyphs, Josh, right?
Yeah, like just that concept, everyone knows a picture is worth 1,000 words. A movie, 20 pictures per second is, 20,000 words or whatever. So, as our culture and our communication habits evolve to incorporate more of those memes and emojis and GIFs, I feel like you'll like if I send you a meme or a GIF or something, you'll instantly understand like the context and the feeling and the what's happening. Whereas if I had to
Hmm.
say, oh, I don't know, like there's many different things out there, but if you were to spell out the whole story in words, it would take a lot longer, be a lot more complex, it'd be a lot more subject to misinterpretation. Whereas this concept communication for us with the aid of technology and even back in the day, let's just say drawing and writing, right? Like that's like a upgrade to our vocal communication. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you said the key word there, which was it has a feeling associated with it. It's not just the message, it's the message and the feeling in one symbol. And that's a higher level of communication as far as I'm concerned. And but listen guys, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to give Sue Win the opportunity if she wanted to comment on anything we had just Josh and I were just talking about.
I agree with all you guys said. It's fascinating. Um, yeah, maybe we can try some telepathic experiments among ourselves.
Remember, once we open the door, it's in the database. This is how we do it, right? But once we put it out there, then it's just a matter of people willing to do it, or we're wanting to really. Just
Yeah.
the want is there. Once we do it, once one person figures something out, then it's there for everyone. It's accessible to everyone
And
until a point where it becomes common knowledge. And enough people have the want and the will, then it just becomes common knowledge. There are people are wanting to do it. They're just doing it because everyone's doing it, you know?
And
Yeah.
speaking of that, we'll have to do another episode and maybe some exercises, like you said, because I had that experience I told you about at homecoming where I successfully did this telepathic reception, and I had this reading yesterday with Sandra, so maybe we could like have her on or something, or talk with
Mhm.
her, and we could do this telepathic exercise, amongst ourselves as well. But that's for another day.
Well, I
Anything
want to,
Yeah.
you want to say before we sign off the recording?
yeah, one thing I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to be able to express these concepts. And I want to thank you in the love and the light of the one true infinite creator for there's only one, and he, she is everywhere and everything. For we are all ideas in the mind of God. Go in peace. Thank you.
Thank you.